Okay, so what are the things you need to avoid if you actually want to get rich or especially if you want to get wealthy? Now, number one is failing to adapt. Now, what do I mean by that? You'll see a few videos ago, I did a video on basically some of the changes I see in 2020s from 2020 to 2029. And the point is, though, most people, there's an expression in the UK, every dog has his day, right? Most people outperform in their industry for a short period of time. There's a hell of a lot of people who never adapt to changing times. So I've seen so many people in the last 10 years succeed when they hadn't previously succeeded, but vice versa. I've seen a lot of people who were succeeding before, but now they're doing much less business. And you can see why, because the last 10 years has been a period of like social media change and online, whatever. So a lot of the people who are doing those traditional techniques, as an example, cold calling, door to door sales, whatever, they've been doing much worse in business. Whereas our people, introverted people, for example, can now do better than extroverted people in business. So, but in the next 10 years, things will keep changing. So the point is, no matter what your industry, you have to keep changing and kind of link to that, keep learning, right? People who are wealthy tend to have a more open mindset, not a fixed mindset. Whereas somebody who has a fixed mindset, they think they know it all. They think their previous success is good enough. I think we've all met them, the kind of people who were, great in their industry in the 80s and 90s, but they kind of became dinosaurs these days. They think they know it all. And I'm sure it'll be the same in 2030, 2040. The big hitters of 2020, the people who are 25, 30 years old now who are absolutely killing it, but they fail to adapt themselves. They fail to keep learning. They think they know it all. Just because they're making a lot of money now, they can't see that in the future they might not make as much money if they don't adapt themselves to the changing times. That's a big thing, right? And also is not thinking big enough sometimes. So a lot of people, it's very hard to convince someone to do something different if they're already making a lot of money or at least comfortable money. In other words, let's say somebody, and I've seen it time and time again, if somebody's had a near life experience or no, has almost died, let's say they almost died from a car crash or whatever, or they got a divorce or something very shocking happened in their life, often they get inspired to really do things that they wouldn't otherwise do because they realize life is short. But I've noticed a lot of people that got a comfortable job. It's very hard, believe it or not, to hire somebody who's doing just okay. And the reason is simple. Let's say you've got somebody who's making, say, $70,000 a year, $80,000 a year, and they're living in a place like Bangkok or, a place which isn't that expensive, where they can live comfortably, where they can still save and invest quite a lot of money. Even if they know deep down that if they started their own business or they joined another firm, they could make double, they're always afraid of what do I have to lose. And anyway, things are going okay, right? And then if you go a step further, let's say someone making $150,000, $200,000, $250,000, whatever it is, most people are just thinking, wow, I'm doing great. Very few people think, well, should I be reinvesting more of this money? Should I be, of course, don't go to the extreme. I'm not saying that people should always go to extremes, but a lot of people, when they get more comfortable, they kind of don't put their foot on the accelerator and say, let's take advantage of this. Let's think 5 times, 10 times. How can I go higher? So being too comfortable and the world of okay can be a big problem, because also eventually it can lead to actually falling. In other words, if you're too stable for too long, it gets boring and you can eventually go down. And that's when wealth isn't always preserved, or at least income isn't always preserved as well. Also, spending too much time with the wrong kinds of people, of course. If you're spending all your time with people who are alcoholics or taking drugs, whatever, you're more likely to become like them. And also, I would say not having enough self-belief. I mean, you don't want to be complacent, you don't want to be arrogant, but you have to have enough self-belief to think you can do something to make it work. Also, persistence is a really key thing. But by the same token, you also need to try many different ideas. There's no point in trying one idea for 100 years and expecting that one idea to work. Persistence is best when you use the numbers game. In other words, combine some of these ideas, like we talked about reading before. If you read every single week, you have new ideas to implement. Don't focus on ideas. That's another thing. Ideas are for implementation. Implementation counts, but ideas do not count. Everyone has loads of great ideas. The person on the streets, the homeless person has $1 million idea. It's implementation that counts. But more realistically, you often need to implement loads of ideas to get some traction. In other words, say for example 500 ideas. Literally, there's 365 days a year. Why can't you implement 2 new ideas every day? 700 new ideas a year, 7,000 after 10 years. That's not going to necessarily guarantee you're going to become wealthy. There's a much bigger chance if you're persistent, but you do it with the numbers game. Same thing with anything, recruitment. If you just focus on being persistent, but you're just focusing on improving existing people, why not cast the net wider? Why not play the numbers game? Why not find a way? Maybe some online portal has literally 1 million people. Why not just focus on numbers game when it comes to your persistence, not just with a small number of people, a small number of ideas, and so on. Okay, everyone, have a good day.